Welcome to another edition of What the Fatah. This is a show where we discuss not just local issues but international headlines as well, news that rarely find an occurrence inside the Indian print media or television, hardly ever. So today I want to touch on the subject of Turkey's intrusion in the Eastern Mediterranean and in the Libyan conflict, Libya being a sad story. Ever since the Europeans and Americans decided that overthrowing Gaddafi would be the best thing that would happen, and it never, ever, wherever America goes, it never settles down. Iraq is an example, still has not settled down after the invasion of Iraq, and toppling Gaddafi may have pleased a whole lot of folks who were upset at him. But it has left the country of Libya in turmoil ever since. In Libya, there is a government which is living inside Tripoli. It's recognized by the United Nations and EU, but it barely has any influence outside. The country as a whole is under the control of the Libyan National Army by a gentleman called Field Marshal, I think he's Field Marshal, Haftar. Haftar is an American Libyan and controls most of the oil pipelines over there, has Tripoli surrounded. But here is where the problem occurs. And Indians listening to this would be quite fascinated, because about 100 years ago, when Turks decided they did not want the Islamic Caliphate and wanted to get rid of it and have a secular nation state, it was Indian Muslims who erupted in protest saying, no, it's the British doing this, and therefore the Khilafat movement was launched by the Ali brothers, and unfortunately Mahatma Gandhi also joined in, resulting in many killings in the south of India, especially in Kerala, by overzealous Muslim mobs who started killing people because they thought that if the Khilafat was gone, the whole entity, the whole notion of the millat, which, by the way, is represented in what we call Jamia Millat Islamia, the Islamic Nations University in Delhi, that wants secularism, quote unquote. I'm digressing, but not to worry. Libya today is having a conflict, but Turkey is directly involved in trying to stir trouble. Why? Because the 100th anniversary of Ataturk's reforms are about to take place in 2021, I think. And President Erdogan and his Islamist allies want to destroy the reforms that Ataturk brought in making Turkey the only secular country in the Islamic world after 600 years of colonial rule over the Arab world, which nobody ever talks about because, it was the Turks colonizing the Arabs, and it was Muslim versus Muslim, so who really cares? Right up till Yemen and Somalia, the Turks had spread. They were in Iraq, they were in Syria, they were in Lebanon, they were in Egypt, they were in Turkey. In fact, very interesting, the song of the US Marines landing on the something mentioning about the Marines in Tripoli has got nothing to do with Gaddafi. It has got to do with America's first war that took place off the shores of Tripoli because Turkish pirates used to kidnap American commercial ships and take the goods, and that was America's first war against the Turkish Ottoman Empire, just as a background. Now what's happening is that Turkey wants to revert back to the Caliphate, and Erdogan wants to establish himself as the resplendent Sultan of the Ottoman Empire that ruled much of the Middle East with colonial interests, treating Arabs as second-rate citizens. Of course, Indian and Pakistani Muslims don't believe that because they are quite subservient and always confused whether you should be, kowtowing the Turks or the Arabs. They always confuse, but it was the Turks who have the influence in India, northern India. The Urdu language has about somewhere between 8 to 10,000 nouns that come from Turkey. And of course, the language itself was the misspoken Bhojpuri or the Khadi Boli of that time, spoken by Turkish troops in Delhi and elsewhere, which became Urdu subsequently. And it means, Urdu is the root word of the word hordes in English. Again, rooted in Turkish, which means large mobs of people. But not to digress again, coming back to Libya, Turkey is supporting the puppet government that resides only in Tripoli, while the rest of the country is under General or Marshal Haftar, who has the support of all Arab countries, but they don't have a voice as big as Erdogan, because President Erdogan always threatens Europe that if they don't comply with what he does, he's going to send another 10,000 refugees to seek to enter Greece. Greece, Cyprus, and Egypt are together trying to fight off Turkish influence in Libya. Now, this is important because if the Eastern Mediterranean gets into a conflict with Turkey versus Greece, and by the way, Turkey is occupying the northern part of the Republic of Cyprus since 1974. No one talks about Turkey's occupation of Cyprus. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry is more worried about supposed Israeli occupation of Palestine, even though the Israelis left Gaza some time ago, and Palestinian leadership, unfortunately, has never accepted the hand of friendship because they want to liquidate the Jewish state. So Turkey today is acting in Syria, trying to subjugate the Syrian Arabs as well as the Kurds. It is now trying to enter the Arab world from the back door of Libya by getting licenses of petroleum to exploit petroleum deposits off the coast of Libya, and trying to interfere into the maritime routes between Egypt, Cyprus, and Greece. Now, you may say in India, what do I care? I've got problems of my own. I've got CAA, NRC, ABC, DEF. I don't know how many miseries are taken about. The question is this: if Turkey emerges again with supremacist ideas of a great caliphate, all the other non-Turkish, non-Arab countries in the world, and you can see the signs of that in Malaysia and how it's trying to put down India, combined with Pakistan and Afghanistan, plus the tiny islands of Maldives and in Somalia and everywhere, there will be trouble on the horizon. And once again, do not let your guard down, because once the Turkish Caliphate roars, there's problem both in the west and in the east of Turkey. Turkey today is extending its hand and alliances with guess who? Malaysia. Do you think Malaysia is becoming anti-India just out of a sudden sense of anger at the CAA? No. The Turks are even involved in funding terrorist groups in Indian Kashmir. Many of the funding that is taking place around the world of extremist groups comes from Qatar and Turkey as well. And so Turkey's moves in the Eastern Mediterranean are very significant for India, because our trade routes with the West go through that area, go through the Suez Canal, go through the Mediterranean Sea, our shipping lines everywhere. And Turkey, if it becomes another Islamic caliphate, will be a threat not just to Greece and Egypt, because they really don't care right now. They want to establish their economic goals. They will work with the devil if it has to attain some sort of economic strength over the Arab world. And the Arabs know that after the fall of Baghdad in 1258, they have been governed by the Turks. And after 600 years, the Arabs still don't have sovereignty over their own futures. India has to keep a watch. It has to have friends in the Arab world, as well as with Iran, with Malaysia in the east trying to bully. And Pakistan obviously does nothing else except try to bleed India to death. And with Turkish money flowing into Pakistan, you have a serious problem at hand. Until next time, it's good to see you, and thank you for watching What the Fatah. Jai Hind.